Well, hello, Discord. If this works, then I am streaming live over on Odyssey for the very first time. Does it say I am? Let's see. I just want some indication that I'm going. Well, it says I'm not live right now. Why does it say I'm not live? Does it say? Okay. I'm getting it now. Yes. That's going. Yes, thought I'd give this a shot because this is going to be fairly quick. Chris Hangartner is with me. I'm just having him on to give us a little update to the videos we've been doing. It was actually on a live stream over on YouTube on Sunday, and he told us about his little adventure defending his family from domestic violence, and then he got arrested for domestic violence and they took his guns and everything. So I made a clip of that, the part of the live stream where we talked about that, put it up on YouTube, and all my YouTube videos repost over here on Odyssey. So people on Odyssey saw that, but then YouTube had a problem with the video, so I re-edited, put it up, went back and forth with them a couple of days, and
I wonder why.
Yeah, and it went back up on yesterday. So you people here on Odyssey got it twice, and so I thought I'd let you guys hear this first, and we'll see how many people participate. And then after this is over, I'll upload it on YouTube so everyone can hear it there, which means it'll pop over here to Odyssey again, so there'll be all sorts of copies of it over here. But that's okay because it's blockchain and that can happen. How you doing, Chris?
Been better, but I'm just glad it's all over.
Yeah, so why don't I turn the mic over to you and you can tell us what happened?
Okay, so I got convicted. My sentence is 12 months of probation, 25 hours of community service, and $200 in a court fee. So basically,
And
yes,
when you say convicted, you mean it was a plea of no contest, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, the judge still found me guilty for obvious reasons, because of that. But so yeah, yesterday I went with my lawyer. We briefly overwent. He double checked to make sure. Are you sure you want to take the plea deal? And I took it because for personal reasons. Because to be fair, I felt it wasn't going to be a fair trial. It would have taken longer and cost much more money than I could afford. So
And it
I
really
just
seemed like, with the way Wisconsin and Green Bay is, from what you were saying, it really sounded like I mean, they wouldn't have let you plead no contest if they had really thought that you were this, horrible domestic abuser, but they were going by what was mandated and the judge was going by what was mandated. So really your only chance to get out of that would have been a jury, but you and your lawyer, from what I understand, weren't that confident that a Green Bay jury would actually acquit you.
Probably, yeah, and yeah, I could tell by like I'm no mind reader, so I can't assume, but I could kind of tell by the expression and the tone of the judge's voice that I think deep down he was thinking, "Wait a minute, I mean, you could argue that he was a little reckless with the gun, but this guy's clearly, this guy he scared away was clearly, for lack of a better word, a piece of poop, and this guy was and he was legit in danger for his life, but like you said, the state mandate says that if you're found guilty, you got to be punished to some degree and you got to lose your second amendment rights. So this
Yeah, and the theory over on YouTube in the comments from people is that it was the warning shot that did it. But to be clear, from the way you described it, it's just a house. There's no one living upstairs or anything. And it was a shotgun, so they would have just, the shot would have embedded harmlessly into the ceiling.
Yeah, that's another thing I wish I was allowed to bring up, but it doesn't really brought up was that see the thing with shotguns people is that even though they can do tremendous amounts of damage as close range compared to a pistol or a rifle caliber, the benefit of a shotgun, and this is actually why they're the only hunting weapons allowed in certain states, is because they have very low muzzle velocity. So they're far less likely to travel far enough to hurt someone, and even if they do, they've lost most of their energy, so it's not as dangerous. It's like, let's say a 22L LR round, which travels very fast. So if it hits something, there's enough force in it that it can ricochet and fling around.
Yeah, and since it spreads out the energy, there's less chance of it over penetrating. With that
Yeah,
said, the advice of self defense experts is do not do a warning shot. Shoot the guy or don't shoot the guy, but don't do warning shots.
yeah. Well,
But I
and
know
to
when you're
my
in that situation and it's a panic, you
well,
know.
yeah, that's a thing I told one person is, listen, yeah, in hindsight, maybe firing a warning shot wasn't a good idea, but you got to remember, I had a fan thrown at me, and this guy, he's huge. He's bigger than me. He's strong. He weight lifts. He could, beat me up if he wanted to. It's hard to describe because he got all that adrenaline going over. One thing I want to know is though, and this is a question I wish I could bring up is how come it's wrong for me, a civilian, to have a panic moment and and get punished for a mistake, but when a cop does it, it's like, oh well, that's just part of their job and it happens.
Yeah, and they accidentally kill a 13-year-old kid or something like that, and they just get away with it. Yeah. And that thing about, I mean, because, I think from a purely legal standpoint, and I am not a lawyer, it should be said, but I think from a legal standpoint, if you're having blunt objects thrown at you, that's a threat, and you should be able to respond with lethal force. So you would have been justified in shooting him theoretically, but I think if you had, instead of doing the warning shot legally, it might have worked out a lot worse for you, especially if the guy had died. I don't
Yeah,
think there would have been
piece of
any plea of
murder.
no contest or anything like that. You're talking about a homicide there.
Yeah, yeah, if that were the case, it's just I mean, that's why, you know, and the thing is too, and they told me this, it doesn't matter if the gun's loaded or not. If you point a gun at someone, they consider that negligence regardless of the context.
Wow.
Yeah, so
Yeah, and again, I can't help bringing up this is the same state that is prosecuting Kyle Rittenhouse down there in Kenosha. And one of the things everyone is really kind of, or at least people on the gun side, not the kind of unthinking lefties following along with the news media, but the people who are actually analyzing it said that one thing Rittenhouse did amazingly, especially for a 17-year-old, was keeping his head and keeping his cool like that. But when you're in that situation, and you don't really know what to do and you have to act, at a moment's notice, it's difficult to judge. And I mean, you can play, armchair quarterback and say, well, maybe you should have done this or maybe you should have done that. But I mean, it's a difficult situation. It's a situation you weren't in for any fault of your own, so it's hard to judge.
oh yeah. And the funny thing, Shane, is that even the lady they had as who was the assistant district attorney who they were calling in as the prosecutor, because the actual district attorney, I mean, I don't want to say anything libelous, but I think, he wasn't going to see my case because, from his point of view, I'm not, my case wasn't important, but even she kind of had this look, that I think in the back of her mind, she's thinking, wait a minute, are we really about to punish a guy who stood up to domestic violence? Like, are we really doing this?
Yeah, and you might be right about the main DA because let's face it, domestic violence cases are a dime a dozen. I think I
Yeah.
read somewhere that that's like half of the arrests in any given area is for some form of domestic violence.
Yeah, and I mean, and that's another thing too that people fail to realize. You're rarely going up against like the actual district attorney of your city or county. They usually just hand it off to a lackey. So
Yeah, you're getting like a 15th assistant or something like that.
Yeah, yeah, because the main one, he's too high and mighty to see all the cases.
Well, I wouldn't say high and mighty, just busy. I mean, there's a lot of cases, and I mean, he's going to have to prioritize.
Well, I know that, but still,
Yeah, well, what I still don't understand is how did I think we were calling him Rufus? It's not his real name, but the guy who was threatening you and threw a fan at you and everything. How did Rufus get away without being arrested? That's what I want to know.
I have no clue. I honestly do not have any clue, especially because he's got quite a rap on him. He's been arrested multiple times for he had a prior felony case which I don't know the exact details. I know it had something to do with, him possessing pornography. I don't know the full details, so I'm not going to
How
go
is
into.
possessing pornography a crime or whatever?
I mean, I can only assume that there might have been some CP on it, but like I said, I don't know the full details. I wasn't there, but
If it were CP, I would think they would have. I think he'd still be in jail with that because they do not mess around with that.
well, I don't know what happened. He told me that he downloaded some files and one of them had CP, although he never viewed it. I don't know. Again, I don't know. I wasn't there. I wasn't his defense lawyer. I wasn't the prosecutor. I wasn't the police. I don't know. But I do know that he does have a history of anger issues. His own family actually contacted my mom and said that they were on my side because they've seen him firsthand get mad and break stuff and threaten to hurt people.
Yeah.
Like I said, he has been known to scream and yell at our dogs and cats, for simply being animals. He yells and he even kicked my dog at one point simply because he was begging, and I'm just thinking, it's a dog. That's what they do.
Yeah.
And he has done drugs. Now mostly it was marijuana, but he was known to indulge in the more hardcore stuff like you've heard of that one drug called Spice. It's that synthetic cannabinoid.
No, I mostly know about it from the Doom books, but that's a
Oh,
different thing.
yeah.
I don't think this
But
is
yeah,
made from sandworms. But
no, this is a different stuff. But yeah, it really, according to a lot of people I've spoke to, it does really mess you up, psychotically, and people who are on the drug are prone to psychotic breaks. And but yeah, I do not know what happened that day. He just And the funny thing is that in his statement to the police, he said that, well, yeah, I acted like that because I was mad because, Chris doesn't do enough around the house and I'm tired of doing all the chores. But at the time, he was unemployed and I was working and so was my mom. So,
yeah, there's always excuses people like that have.
yeah. And I do not know. I'm not allowed to make contact with him because that was part of the bail deal I had when they released me from jail. But from what I've heard, he's doing very bad, and he recently admitted to my mom he's doing cocaine now. So
Yeah, sounds like he has some problems that maybe some professional
yeah,
help would.
yeah. And the thing is, initially I wanted to go to trial because I figured out, well, hey, if they bring him on stand, they'll see what a piece of garbage he is and they'll sympathize with me. The problem was that, and my lawyer explained this, if they do go to trial, the prosecutor will call in the police, and if the police say, and they most likely will say, well, we agree that this Rufus character, he's a terrible person, but that was not the way he should have handled it, and he was reckless and endangering people, then it's like, yeah, then my fate is sealed because even with what's been going on, juries tend to blindly obey the cop. You know,
Yeah, that's true.
yeah, they tend to say, well, the police said it, and why would a police officer. And the thing is, I
They're
don't think the
supposed to act on the presumption of innocence, but the fact of the matter is that's more theory
yeah.
than practice.
And I don't even think the police is lying or anything, that's just their opinion. But the problem is that people think, well, the officer must be right. He wouldn't say so if it was right. But the thing is, and we pointed this out, even if the police isn't lying or a crook, and he is genuine, he's still a human. He's not perfect. He wasn't there when it happened. He's just going off of what he thinks he would have done, but I'm pretty sure as many victims of domestic violence would tell you, you don't know what it's like to be in that situation until it is. So it's not so easy to play, armchair quarterback. As you pointed out.
Yeah, and it's a real problem with the justice system where even if you have a case like that, the people are incentivized to just plead it out and just make it go away, as opposed to, fighting and getting, because I mean, even if you had been convicted, you probably could have gotten it overturned on appeal. But again, I mean, I don't know which appellate court you're under. It kind of all depends. But
Yeah, I mean, I did bring it. Well, and the thing is, a lot of people, some people have been criticizing me, saying, why didn't you, why didn't you take the plea deal and all that? And believe me, people, I did not want to take the plea deal. I wanted to fight it, but like I said, I discussed it with my lawyer over and over again, and he said, look, I can't make any promises, and if you do choose to fight it in a trial, I will do everything in my power to defend you and give you and give you a not guilty verdict. But the sad reality is I've seen cases like yours before, and I've seen plenty of cases where people had legitimate, self-defense arguments and they still got convicted. So it would be a huge risk. And not to mention with all the news reports of shootings going up there, it's very easy for the prosecutor to just tell the jury. It's like, but still, Chris might think he's a reckless, loose cannon. If we let him go unpunished, he might do it again, when someone hurts him or offends him, which wouldn't happen. And the jury might be scared enough to say, yeah, maybe we should at least convict him just to be safe.
yeah, and this is again why I think it's going to be interesting to follow the Rittenhouse trial, because there you do have pretty much the closest thing I think you'll ever see in the real world to textbook self-defense. The fact that they're even going forward with it is a travesty,
Oh
but I
yeah.
mean, we'll have to see how it goes. But I mean, it could be a very bad thing for gun owners if, I mean, it sounds like this is already somewhat the case, that if you defend yourself, then, you find yourself on trial and you find yourself in serious risk and having to take a plea deal just to avoid something even worse. But, in a case like that, if they can get a conviction on Rittenhouse, then that's going to have a huge chilling effect, to anyone who would be in a position of having to defend themselves.
I've actually seen plenty of people who are flat out saying, now I don't know if they'll actually carry it out with it, but they're saying, you know what we should do? If Kyle Rittenhouse does get found guilty, we should rally, find the place he's being held in, and bust him out. And I jokingly told them, yeah, and can you bust out Julian Assange and Ross Ulbricht while you're at it?
Yeah, it just does not fill one with confidence for
Yeah.
the justice system.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not 100% against it as long as they don't hurt innocent people in the process and they actually have a legitimate plan. Because the problem is that if you bust out a person from jail, you're gonna have you're gonna have every single police authority division after you now. Yeah, the marshals are gonna be after you. The FBI is gonna be after you. Everyone's gonna be after you.
Yeah, so unless you're ready to move to Russia,
Yeah. And if you do that, then you have no chance of returning because then they're going to say, "Ha! Kyle Rittenhouse fled to Russia. He's a Russian spy."
yeah, that's something. If you read Snowden's book, something he was, very well aware of, being, well versed in how the intelligence community operates. Because he didn't make the decision to go to Russia. It was just a layover in Moscow, and they revoked
Yeah,
his passport. But
yeah. So
they said like the first thing that happened, when he was kind of saying, well, I guess I live here now. Can I have, I don't know if it was asylum or just some kind of, I don't even know if it was citizenship or whatever, but just, permission to stay here and live in the country so I don't have, so I don't have to stay in the airport the rest of my life. And he said basically one of the first things that happened is that basically he comes into this room with all of these Russian intelligence operatives, obviously wanting to know if he could be an asset to them. And he said, I knew what to do right away. He said, look, I am not interested in doing anything like that, because if you even talk to them for more than a few minutes, the U.S. intelligence system is going to say, see, that just proves it.
Yeah.
If you even sit there and listen to them for that long.
Yeah, it's just.
Yeah, and it's crazy.
But yeah, this just reminds me of like I said, it's just baffling how stuff like this is happening, and all these, you know, politicians are going, why aren't people, calling the police or trusting the justice system? And I'm like, because they're afraid if they call the cops, they're going to get arrested alongside the guy they called the cops on.
So you've got, what is it, 12 months of probation?
Yep.
What kind of limitations do you have during that?
Not too many. I just can't, the usual, though they do have the usual, I can't drink, I can't own guns, I have to contact my PO every time I have an encounter with the police. So if I get pulled over for, like, let's say speeding, I gotta contact the PO agent and say, hey, I got pulled over for speeding. Here's what happened, stuff like that. And I also can't move anywhere without, the probation's approval. So that's why I can't, immediately move to a county that's constitutional carry, because the PO is going to look at that saying, why do you want to move to a place that's constitutional carry? And even if I say no particular reason, they're going to say, yeah, no way.
So are there any counties in Wisconsin that are full constitutional carry?
There's a few of them. I'm gonna research some more, but again, I'm gonna see what it is. Hopefully, maybe. One thing I'm hoping is that, because Evers isn't really popular here anymore. If he gets voted out by the time this is all done with, maybe I can petition the new guy, if he's very pro-gun, to, basically get it expunged. I mean, I don't think he can pardon me once it's over with, but he can expunge it, if I recall correctly.
Oh no, he can pardon it once it's over. Yeah.
Yeah,
you can pardon it any time, but
yeah.
But I was looking, I didn't find anything about Wisconsin specifically, but I did find a list of states that had passed constitutional carry. And, traditionally Vermont was the big one. In fact, very often it's called Vermont carry. But one of the ones that's passed constitutional carry in recent years is Iowa, right there next to you. So when this is all over.
I would prefer, if I have no choice but to leave my state, I would prefer to leave to a state where it's recognized statewide, because, with a county, the state can just go around saying, oh yeah, you're invalid. We and then because I mean, if I recall correctly, can't the state government dissolve a county if they want to?
I don't think they can dissolve a county, but I think they have certain powers in what they can.
Yeah, they can say you either enforce this law or we punish you economically speaking.
But it looks like there are quite a few, like the upper Midwest, North Dakota, South Dakota, Wyoming, Montana, Idaho, go down to Utah and Arizona. Near where you are, you can go straight down Iowa, Missouri, and Arkansas, over to Oklahoma and up to Kansas. Texas hasn't passed it yet, I don't think. But there's even...
It probably will, but
there's Mississippi, Tennessee, Kentucky, and West Virginia. Hopefully that'll move a little bit east over here to the Carolinas. But I can tell you, in North Carolina, there is a constitutional carry bill in the legislature right now, but no way in hell Roy Cooper is going to sign it.
Why is he a Joe Biden wannabe?
He's basically Gavin Newsom light.
Yeah. Well, I already told you, Gavin Newsom is basically Diet Joe Biden, a younger Diet Joe Biden. Yeah.
Yeah.
That guy is
And you have a lot of the New England states, Maine, New Hampshire, and Vermont, which usually that's an area that's big on gun control. And I really doubt Massachusetts is going to do it, or New York. So that might be stopped in its tracks right there. But it looks like there's a big movement in recent years, more and more states passing constitutional carry.
Yeah. Well, that should be it from the get-go, because politicians, if you actually read the Constitution, all gun laws are unconstitutional.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but
and Alaska as well.
Yeah, but they don't care. Yeah, they'll say, "Well, actually, it was said in the Supreme Court case of Joe Schmo versus John Doe that while yes, holding guns is allowed, they can make limited constitutional, they can make limited restrictions and regulations." I'm like, no, they can't.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
they've said a couple of different times that the right to keep and bear arms does refer to an individual right and not any kind of like collective right of the militia or the like the National Guard or whatever.
yeah. So yeah,
But I
but
mean, the problem is you still have like, oh, well, you can limit rights to free speech or whatever else as long as there's a compelling governmental reason. And you know where that comes from?
yeah, that what you said, the whole fire in a crowded theater, which was about shutting up people who are criticizing the draft.
Well, that's one, but I was talking about the compelling government interest thing is from World War II when the Supreme Court upheld the internment of Japanese Americans.
Oh yeah, they said, well, it's in the name of public safety.
Yeah, if
Yeah,
there's a compelling government interest, apparently that's an exception to everything in the Constitution or the Bill of Rights or whatever.
yeah, you know, yeah. I'm sorry, politicians, but if you truly hate guns and you want guns to be gotten rid of, you're gonna have to change the Constitution through amendment. You can't just declare, well, some obscure Supreme Court case said we could make some rules, so we're gonna pass that.
Yeah, but it really
Yeah,
looks like things are going the other way with the amount of states that are doing the
yeah.
constitutional carry. And of course, what you'll hear in the news media is, no, 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 no. People want guns to be controlled and to stop people from carrying. No, they don't.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. If people are sick and tired of guns and they're thinking we need to get rid of guns and do something about it, how come it's next to impossible to find guns and ammunition anymore?
Well, a lot of that recently is because of it's just difficult to find anything in the COVID era.
Well, yeah, I know, but still.
It's like we were talking on the Discord. There's all this construction going on, and demand for construction, and the price of lumber has gone through the roof because it's just too difficult to get. And someone had said, "Well, why do we all of a sudden have fewer trees?" And I was explaining, no, 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 it's not about the trees. It's about getting the trees from where they are to where the people who want them are. And that's the kind of thing you have. They cannot find enough drivers for anything. I think we talked on the podcast about the cargo ships that are just sitting there off the coast of California, just waiting to be unloaded.
Yeah. And this kind of is a little off topic, but it does go back to what I said about Gavin Newsom. Like that guy is an idiot. It's like he did all this stuff that took an already weakened, Californian economy that was weakened from decades of government intervention, and he completely destroyed it. And he's going around saying, "Well, but why are people trying to recall me? What did I do?"
Yeah, and it doesn't help that, after passing like all of these COVID restrictions about eating in restaurants and things like that,
Oh yeah, that
he,
too.
he
Yeah.
gets caught, with pictures of him and his buddies eating at a restaurant that no one else is allowed to eat in.
Yeah. And also, wasn't his administration caught, more or less saying, to, companies and other organizations that were pro Newsom and gave him, he said, well, some of the COVID restrictions don't apply to you, but they still apply to everyone else.
Yeah, that's something else that Roy Cooper is like Newsom liked because it's like he's done some of that, but he doesn't really have the stones to do it as much and as
No.
blatantly as Newsom did. But it's the same
Yeah.
kind of thing, rules for thee and not for me.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean that's another thing. That's why I hate Joe Biden when he comments about gun control because he goes around saying, "I don't imagine why you would need more than 30 rounds to protect your homes." Easy for you to say, Mr. Biden. You've got a private army of commandos protecting you 24/7.
Well, and they're so demanding that we get the COVID vaccine, and they made sure they got the COVID vaccine. It's like, I'm trying to find somewhere within 45 minutes of here that has it.
Yeah.
Without
Well, we
having to
got
go into Charlotte or, up to Mooresville or somewhere.
well, Shane, the high priority people have to have it first. And the funny thing is that many health experts are saying it shouldn't matter who gets the vaccine. We need to get as many people vaccinated now so it creates herd immunity.
Well, I
Because if
mean,
you
in my case, it practically doesn't matter because I had it over the holidays, so I should be fairly immune, and at least until the end of the year. I think they're saying it's confirmed that you really have a year of immunity. But of course, the politicians and the WHO are saying that all of a sudden that immunity from actually getting it doesn't count. So if you want all the special privileges of citizenship, you need the vaccine. But it's like the math doesn't care why you're immune, just that you're immune.
yeah, yeah,
I mean, we've heard them say all sorts of crazy things like, well, herd immunity depends on them dying. No, herd immunity depends on them not dying, because if they die, they're removed from that equation and they're not part of
yeah,
the. Yeah, it's
it's
crazy stuff.
well, yeah, but yeah, after all I've been going through, it's like I'm sorry, I have no faith in the government, and I'm not trying to say I'm going to commit a crime or anything, but like I said earlier, from now on, my rule is 911 is for fire or medical emergencies. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll bet you anything if you mention that to your lawyer, he'll tell you, yeah, I get that from people all the time.
He didn't say anything like that, but yeah, I know what you said because I do because you have said a lot of
I've
people.
heard that from defense attorneys. Like, we get people in our firm all the time coming through the door saying, I swear, no matter what happens, I am never calling the police for anything else for as long as I live.
Well, yeah, exactly. People, going back to the whole, myth about, the bystander effect. I've actually heard some people saying the reason why we're seeing bystander effects now is not because people don't care. It's because what the police are doing now, a lot of people are afraid to call because if they see a person like dead or a dead body, they're afraid to call the police because they're afraid if they call and report it, the police are going to say, "Yeah, how did you find that body?" I was taking a walk and I stumbled across it. Why were you out walking? Well, what do you mean? Yeah, you're coming with us. We got to ask you a few questions.
Yeah, it's a chilling effect, not a bystander. The bystander effect has been pretty much debunked. But
Yeah,
yeah, if you have people who are just afraid to call the police for fear that, they'll get charged or arrested or whatever.
yeah.
Yeah.
And no joke, some people are afraid, to call the police, even to help other people because they're afraid of that reason, because they're afraid, well, what if, it's not as serious as I thought it was, but the police are going to treat it as serious, because a lot of people don't want, even though they want to help their neighbors, they don't want them hurt either. And they're afraid, like, if they call and say, hey, I hear my neighbor's having a fight, I'm scared, for their safety. They're afraid, that they're going to call in SWAT and SWAT's going to go in and someone's going to get shot and killed. And it's like, politicians, is that the society you're creating now? By
Well, we've
telling the.
covered we've covered stories like that where someone is concerned about a neighbor because they haven't come out in a while or whatever, and so they just call the police. Go, I just want someone to go over there and make sure they're okay. The next thing they know, there's SWAT teams coming over there and they're busting down the neighbor's door and they're coming over there trying to. It's like, I was just wanting you to do a wellness check on them.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've even heard people say that too. It's like if you have a wellness check on someone, it's like call a friend, a family member, or a neighbor to do it. Do not call the police. They're just gonna destroy the place.
Or just walk over, knock on the door, and say, "Hey, I'm just wondering if everyone here is okay. If I can help with anything, give me a call."
And it's just like
This is what Mary Ruwart wrote about decades ago in Healing Our World. Just people aren't doing the good neighbor thing. They're just calling the police to say, hey, need to go and do this, as opposed to just going over there yourself and, introducing yourself, say, hi, this is who I am. And
Yeah, I have heard that from a lot of people, from a lot of old, boomers that are like that. They're saying that's the real tragic part is that, we're not friendly. To be fair, one of the reasons why we have so many Karens and Kyles out there is because we're not being neighborhoods anymore. We're not being neighbors. We're not getting to know our neighbors. And because of that, we don't know anything. So we don't trust each other. So the moment something suspicious happens, we call the cops on each other. And that's another thing too. It's like we instantly go for the police instead of, trying to settle it out first. I mean, I even saw like an older comedian, who was like around your age who jokingly said, back when I was a little kid, we only called the cops when someone was getting robbed or murdered, but now we're calling them for everything.
Yeah, when they generally not to be called for. I mean, and if because like a lot of the ones that's happened, and this is actually one of the things that's come out about Derek Chauvin. There was a case a few years ago where, and I forget all the details, but he had put his knee on like I think it was like a 13-year-old kid, put it on his neck for like 15 minutes or something like that, with the mom going, "What are you doing?" Because she had called 911 because he was having, some kind of mental breakdown, and she wanted to get him out. And then the next thing, it's like, they burst through the door, and then like 10 seconds later, he's on the ground, Chauvin's knee is on his neck, and
Mm.
it's just not good stuff. Whereas instead of having, like, in addition to like police, fire, and the emergency ambulance, if you had a part of that where you could say, "Hey, I need a mental health professional out here."
Yeah. I've actually heard that too. Like they believe that, like they say that, listen, if you're if you or a loved one is suffering from like some sort of mental breakdown, they do say the best thing you should do is that if you have to call 911, at the very least, beg the 911 dispatcher, do not send the police, just send emergency medical teams. Because if I recall correctly, EMTs do have restraints where if they absolutely must do, they can hold a person down until they calm down. Whereas if you send the police, the first thing they're gonna do is they're gonna treat it like it's a criminal and they're gonna get tackled or tased. And that's not gonna help them.
Yeah, I mean, it's just gotten to the place with the police. Anyone who isn't a part of the police or a politician or anything like that is just automatically the enemy.
Yeah, I mean, and even though I don't and even though I condemn the rioters, I can't 100% blame them either, because it's like when you treat your own populace like they're criminals, how do you expect them to react?
Well, I mean, I condemn the riots, but, as far as just the general idea of, the Black Lives Matter movement, and, even the defund the police, I mean, that doesn't work very well if you just say, okay, we're going to take away your funding, but we're not going to do anything else. If you don't have like some kind of armed community watch or some other kind of, private security force or whatever that you're replacing them with, what are you doing? But
Yeah.
you do need to kind of hit them where they live, and, because funding is a good motivator.
Well, and the thing is that a lot of people are trying to say, well, we want to cut off the police's funding by basically convincing our aldermen or whoever's in charge to shrink, the amount of money the police get. But the thing is, the police don't get a lot of money from taxes. Most of their money comes from fines or civil asset forfeiture.
Yeah, who wants to bet they're going to be auctioning off those guns of yours that they seized to kind of pad
Well,
their.
well, the guns they're gonna give to my mom. They're gonna give to my mom, and she's gonna either sell them or, like, my aunt's offered to take some of them off. Tragically, the
Okay.
shotgun the shotgun I used was surrendered, and it's probably gonna be destroyed, which is sad because it was a nice shotgun. You
I mean,
know?
that didn't make any sense. Why destroy it?
Yeah, I don't know.
Like
I
it's
don't know.
tainted or something.
Yeah, I know. It's like this gun was used in a crime. It's tainted and corrupted by evil, and it must be destroyed in holy fire. It's like it's a mechanical device.
Yeah.
That's the thing I
And
don't
people
get
wonder
about it.
why I call it a cult.
Yeah, that's another thing I don't get with that. Like people treat guns like they're these evil devices that the moment they touch you, you develop a drive to murder. It's like people, they're mechanical devices. You know, they're not shooting bullets because they're evil murder machines. They're just following the rules of mechanical physics.
Well, is there anything else you wanted to cover on this?
Nope, that's just it. Other than like I said, people listen. I know it's hard, but if you are legitimately having issues, even domestic violence, look, I'm sorry, don't go to the police. escape and tell someone else what's going on, but don't go to the police because if you fight back, they're gonna throw you in the slimer with the person who's abusing you. So don't do it.
Or even instead of the person who's abusing you.
Well, yeah, especially that. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's just,
Yeah. Things have got to start changing in this country.
yeah. I'm sorry. You know, I've, you know, I've lost faith in the system. I've completely lost faith in it. It need,
Well, we didn't get anyone in the chat, but I'm just going to say thanks to any Odysseyers who have been watching that. I don't really know what the daemonym here is. Odysseyers, librarians, whatever it is, and this will also be up over on YouTube. And if you're watching this on YouTube, please comments for the Common God, shares for the Share Throne, like, subscribe, and the bell to keep all of this up in the algorithm, because I'm sure YouTube is going to bury it.
oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, because we're saying mean things about their holy emperors.
And please use the links on the screen to go and donate. Thanks, Chris, for sharing your story with us.
Oh yeah.
We'll see y'all later.
I've been bottling that up for a long time now. So
yeah, this went on for months and months, and yeah,
almost a year.
Wow.
Yeah, just all over something that shouldn't have gone to court. But then again, you did mention that even if you're pulled over for like drunk driving and you haven't hit anyone, they just pull you over and they discover, oh yeah, you're drunk. It can take 6 months before they resolve everything.
Yep, that's just how slowly it goes. You have the right to a speedy trial, but speedy apparently is a little bit of an
yeah, that's
information.
another thing too, because I did bring that up, and my lawyer was like, "Well, sadly, we didn't request a speedy trial, and even if we did, the government gets to determine what's set speedy. And in a lot of places, they think 3 months is speedy because it's often like 90 days."
Yeah, which is another way they kind of entice people into pleading, because I mean, especially if it's a case where, they're not letting you out of jail, or you can't afford bail or whatever, or it's a case where, you're not going to be able to work until it's all over with. You can't go 3 months without working and paying bills, if you're poor.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I mean, I've been through that exactly. I've been living off, the stimulus check the government gave me.
Yeah.
Yeah, which, by the way, thanks to that, our shopping is expensive now.
Oh,
I know
you
my mom.
noticed that, huh?
Yeah, my mom was complaining all about it's like, why is grocery shopping costing $200? And I'm like, well, mom, that's just what's happening. The government's spending all this money, and that leads to inflation, which means the value of the dollar drops significantly because it's no longer as valuable, which means prices go up.
Yep, that's how it is.
Yep.
All right, we'll see you, everyone. Until next time, stay strong and be free.
Yep.